What's up, guys? So we've got another awesome episode of the Yu-Gi-Oh show. We've got our awesome guest, the Sanctum Squad, and in addition, guys, you know we're putting in the work. We've got another very, very, very special guest. Introduce yourself, please.
Hi, my name's Jacob, and I have a small presence in the online Yu-Gi-Oh space as Grandmark YUGIOH. I have a very occasionally posting YouTube channel that posts really, really long, drawn-out combo videos, which typically end up in like an FTK or summoning some bizarre monster or something. And so that's what I sort of do online. But then I know everyone else on this call in real life. Again, I'm sort of local to the region that we all play in, and that's where I'm sort of generally found playing a mix of off and on meta depending on where I'm at. And yeah, I guess that's me.
I'd like to shout out Jacob before we get any further for a big congratulations on 25,000 views on his Zushin the Sleeping Giant Turbo video. So big up, big up, big up.
I'm not entirely sure how that happened because, like, literally, a friend of mine who has been mentioned on this podcast before, Levi, just said, "Why don't you make a thing summoning that?" And I did, and I think he shared it with like one of his friends, and then suddenly it had 25,000 views.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
But I really enjoy making those kind of things because they're very different aspects of the game. They're very much like puzzles and working out how to get to this end goal from this starting point of just having one card in hand plus discards, and that's really it's really fun. Definitely not something you'd ever play in a tournament. It's incredibly boring, both for the opponent but also for you. But,
it's like the old duel videos the old duel challenges you used to get on like the DS games for the
yeah, exactly. Those are always a bit of fun, but definitely a one-player thing.
Yeah.
More than anything else, when Yu-Gi-Oh gets described as solitaire, that is that. So,
yeah, of course.
What I always wonder, because I can't how do you make those FTKs? Whenever I see that stuff, I'm always just baffled about how you even think of those combos. Like, how do you do that?
So, there's, I guess, I say I look at it from both the start and the end goal, kind of simultaneously. So I typically start. I have sort of two starting points. Unfortunately, one of them's been banned now, with Hulk being banned. But I normally start with Isolde, which is a bit boring, really. Like, I'm in certain FTK servers, and they quite like it when you don't start with Isolde. But I always sort of know that I can start with Isolde, go through like the classic Armageddon loop with the Dagaras and the Zephyros and the DDR. I'm saying this just off the matter of fact, as though everyone knows what I'm talking about. But I know that I can basically get to Saryuja Skuldred, having searched for specific monsters through using one of the best cards in the game, Dark Doriado, which is a pendulum monster that, when it's summoned, stacks the top 4 cards of your deck. And so if you do that before you do Saryuja Skuldred, then you can just draw 4 cards that you want.
Oh, God.
So it basically means that Isolde is pretty much any 4-card combo you want, essentially. Then
absolutely. Well, as long as it's a 1 wind, 1 earth, 1 water, 1 fire monster, but you can do so much with that.
That's really
and then from the other end, it's just going back through like what your end goal is and seeing the cards that can accomplish it, and then just trying to join the two ends of it together. And that involves a lot of reading and a lot of thinking, but also as well, if you found a card that does something for some reason, if it has any other effects, like trying to make use of those as well. And I won't labour on these points much longer, but I remember when I did the Spear Cretin FTK with all-out attacks, I just needed a pendulum monster for some reason, like a water pendulum monster. And I picked Magica Libra, which is a normal water pendulum monster.
Yeah.
And it randomly has this effect that modulates levels, and that ended up actually turning out to be crucial to the FTK, even though I didn't pick that for any reason. I just needed a water pendulum I could search off Dark Doriado.
Just sort of a happy accident.
Yeah, and that actually ended up being the missing piece. This pendulum that was just on field was able to change the level, I think, of like Rescue Cat or something into a level 4, and that was relevant for some play. And so just making use of every little synergy that you've got, and working it out from there, and spending a lot of time reading Dueling Book. But I mean, I do that anyway.
Wow, bro, I just see that's actually like so sick and like intricate. Like, Yeah, for me, 9 times out of 10, if I'm doing a combo, I just saw it somewhere. I don't think I ever really ever. The longest combos I make are like, I don't know, like Activate Red Eyes Fusion stuff. That's my speed when it comes to comboing.
That sounds like a bit of me. That does.
Yeah.
Alright, guys, let's quickly go into the ban list. So.
Here we go.
What I'm going to
Here we
quickly
go.
do is I'm just going to quickly read out what the ban list is for anyone who didn't see it. So, in terms of cards that were banned, Curious, the Lightsworn Dominion, Link Monster was hit, Mystic Mime was hit. In terms of the limits, Herald of Orange Light was taken down to 1. In terms of semi-limits, Lyrilusk Recital Starling was taken up to 2. And then in terms of the unlimits, I'm going to butcher this name, whatever. Ptolemaeus?
Oh, Ptolemaeus.
Loving it. Ptolemaeus, Dimensional Fisher, Fire Formation Tenki, Macrocosmos, and Metaverse were all moved to unlimited. So let's quickly go around, guys. What do we think about the ban list? So let's start with Dan. What do you think, bro?
Well, I think, yeah, this is the only way that Mystic Mine could have been banned and people wouldn't be happy.
Yeah.
Legitimately, like
Which is quite impressive when you think about it.
Oh yeah. I don't know. I think he didn't do enough. But also, I understand it from a product perspective. You know, the Ishizu cards have just been released, and they want to sell a bit of mana. You know, which is fine. The thing that I'm not really, I don't want to say not happy about, but I think the thing that I'm most apprehensive about is the unlimited of Di-Fi and Macrocosmos. That is. Macrocosmos not necessarily as much because it is a trap and it can be warninged and like, you know, Rukalos, which is just really funny to me. But Di-Fi, like, it's just, you know, you do your combo and you just slap a Di-Fi down and it's like, because it turns off a lot of hand traps as well. Turns off Phaler, turns off Ogre, turns off Crow, I think.
Droll.
Yes, Droll, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. And the other stuff's just whatever in it. I think the Herald of Orange Light hit, I hate that. Like, I think cards that are, like, specifically hand traps or cards that interrupt, I think they should either be at 3 or 0 because it just makes it so sacky and it feels so bad when your opponent draws the one off. But that's just me. If I had to give this ban list a score out of 10, I think I'd probably give it a 4.
Yeah.
Which is generous, I think.
Yeah, that's a nice a nice score even, yeah.
Yeah. That's my thoughts on it anyway. Sorry, I've rambled on for quite a bit there.
That's calm, bro.
What about you, Fabs? What are you saying on it?
Me personally, yeah, I literally everything you said, 100% I agree. I think it's significantly it's significantly worse than I expected. I never really have faith in Konami with ban lists anymore. But somehow they managed to disappoint me even with this one, just because it just... Sometimes I'm just so confused. Like, even as they hit Curious, I realized a while ago as well that it wasn't even that they were hitting tier late with Curious. It was actually that they were nerfing Dark World in advance with Curious, because Dark World is a very, very good deck that can utilize that card very easily. And so it just surprised me, because I'm just like, does that mean that they're happy with tier elements right now? Like, I don't understand. Like, and the thing that also surprises me is that when I look back at some other new decks that come out and like dominate the format, so the one that always kind of pisses me off is Lyrilusk. When Lyrilusk Tri-Brigade started coming to the top of the format, when the new Lyrilusk cards came out, they actually got hit straight away. They got nerfed instantly, the format, and then they got nerfed again the next format. And it just shocks me because sometimes in my head, I understand the whole it's a new card, it's a new set, don't hit, but then it's like they're not even consistent with that all the time. So it does really irritate me that it's like, for example, what's that deck? Sprite got hit, actually got properly hit, I would say, with the Ronin Toad.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's like this Herald hit, half the tier decks weren't even playing Herald, and they know they're releasing more support for tier anyway. So just anyway, yeah, Konami, just Konami things. So my opinion about this list.
Yes,
also, as a general, I don't have a problem with floodgates. But I do have a problem with certain types of floodgates, and I'd say Di-Fi and Macrocosmos are a floodgate I don't like because they are very unfair to certain decks. That's my problem with floodgates like that. I don't mind floodgates like Tikaboo and Rivalry and such. The problem with Dimensional Fissure is that it affects a core mechanic of the game so much. You make every deck in the game based around the graveyard, and so I mean, now if you want to play most rogue decks, you just can't play them with Microcosmos, Di-Fi, D-Shifter. It's just impossible to play half the rogue decks in the game, which I don't like. So yeah,
it just forces like those decks to play, like inherently play more back row removal, and that's going to put them even further behind playing against some of the meta decks, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Nate, you want to go next, bro?
Yeah, sure. So this list was, I'm gonna say interesting to put it in better words, because there was.
So how you feel, bro? Don't just sugarcoat it for the sake of it. It might be half
This
9
list
in the
was
morning.
terrible. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. Like, as we were talking about beforehand, they hit mine in a way that infuriated every single player, because it was the fact of mine has been a card that's been sort of there to help with dealing with these combo decks that set out these outrageous boards, because you could literally you'd still have a way to play if you had it going second, or if you were going into. Like,
It doesn't feel good, but I do genuinely think mine was a necessary evil.
Of course, it was. Like, we've had this conversation so many times.
Yeah.
Like, we've genuinely had this conversation so many times where we actually thought mine was. It wasn't a great card design, but it was still needed for obviously the board states that were coming about. And then they banned it at such a weird time. This is the the Herald hit was also a bit weird. As I've said,
I didn't get that at all.
Yeah.
It's an odd thing, because like when most lists aren't even playing the Herald package in general, and now they're just hitting it outright for obviously. Ooh, we saw it in the OCG. Let's ban it. The curious thing needed to go. I think, as we saw in previous tier lists, like being able to send any single any card that you needed to the graveyard, as well as it was used in the Dark World variant, and
Just felt too late, yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
genuinely.
Because like last ban list, like everyone wanted Curious gone, and it's like this ban list kind of seemed like an afterthought in it. I think if you combine this ban list with the previous one, it would have been a good ban list.
It would have been a lot better, definitely.
Yeah,
That's one of the things I was definitely going to say. Like all of these hits could have happened pre-Mama, pre-Dabble, all of them, and we probably would have looked at that as like okay, now they're sort of taking it seriously to take the power level of the deck down ahead of it coming out, rather than not seeming like you're affecting it very much now.
I do like some of the unbans though. Let's be honest. Starling to 2, that's fine. At least Lyrilis can now be played. Tenki to 3, Fire Fist.
I like that.
Fire Fist.
And then my favourite deck. I'm not complaining about that.
And then there's also Macro and Difo are definitely a big a big hit. I especially think that now it's almost like they're just like, oh, we're not going to hit the tier cards because these are new. So what we're going to do is we're going to unban all the cards that basically shit on this deck.
Yeah.
And it's things. So we're just going to force everyone to play Grand Marju, and good times.
Speaking of, I want to give a quick. I know it's a little bit off topic, but I want to ask Jacob. Grand Magi is your favourite deck of all time, I believe, other than Lunalight, or it's definitely up there if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Are you going to be messing around with Grand Magi now that we've got these banished floodgates back?
Ooh, good question.
Probably not, to be perfectly honest.
What?
It's a deck I like coming back to, but there's lots of other things I want to try. And like even with these floodgates, I think that there's another deck that I'm interested in sort of messing around with first, which is Goatee.
Yeah.
And,
Hold tight.
And just seeing if anything can come out of that. But I sort of treat Grand Magi as a bit of an old faithful, really. And,
I get you.
Like that was the first deck I played in Pope format, was Grand Magi.
Oh my gosh.
So,
yeah, I remember actually.
I can very much come back to it when I want. I thought you were going to say something else, Dan, about my very first match at locals ever.
Oh, with me, yeah, that was a great
Yeah,
match.
oh,
That
oh.
was.
was against you.
What was
And
that?
I came in, not played the game for 10 years. This wonderful friend of mine here, Dan, they summoned this Blue Eyes Chaos Max Dragon.
Yeah, this was in my. I was very new. I was new to the game in terms of competitively, so I was still playing anime decks. But it is what it is. Sorry,
Yeah.
Jacob, carry on.
And that's all right. So they summoned Blue Eyes Chaos Max, and that's a big monster. It does a lot of damage.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe I attacked for game over Chaos Max with the Grand Magic.
Yeah, I think you desires, then like I ashed or something, and then you were like, "Oh, okay." So I normal summon Gren, and then I was just like, "What?"
Oh, happy days! Happy days.
It really was. It was such a funny experience, but it just made me laugh every single time.
And it brought us together.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, we were talking about the ban list. I do apologise for cutting you off.
I was gonna say Jacob can give us his thoughts, and then we'll move on.
Yeah.
To the topic.
So, I guess firstly, just on the point that Nate was saying around the floodgates, it's almost frustrating because you could already floodgate tier.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So like these are obviously very wide-ranging floodgates, like the compared to some of the things that existed before. But the option to put a floodgate out already existed, and instead now you're just expanding what's there to hit other decks. Like you could do things like Shadow Imprisoning Mirror, or summon limits and things like that, and they're more they are narrower. But like Shadow Imprisoning Mirror is going to shut off all of the fusion effects in Grave, for example, things like that. So, like it doesn't really feel like an incredibly sort of satisfying way to address tier.
Yeah.
Tier still doesn't like tier can just as well Twin Twister or Heartbeat those cards as they could floodgates before, and so I don't think that those floodgates are necessarily really going to change that much.
Yeah.
And so you still end up in this format with this incredibly dominant deck. And now, cards on the table, I play tier Ishizu, and I really, really enjoy it. I really enjoy the mirror matches, and I mean, obviously, other matches are pretty, like, they're often quite easy just because of the natural power of the deck. Although I did get beaten by Labyrinth yesterday, which was very funny. And maybe we can talk about that later. But for a lot of people, and a lot of people who don't play this deck, this format is very, very frustrating and very, very stale, and it puts people off. And and that's the thing I think we have to sort of think about with, like I say, Konami need to balance very carefully with a ban list in a tier 0 format. Often it does come with product they want to keep selling, as has been reflected on before, although there isn't always that consistency. But the trade-off for that is the enjoyment of the player base as a whole. And there's lots of people in our local scene who like stopped coming to our locals because of it.
Yeah.
Or like when they got drawn against tier Ishizu, they just immediately give the tier player the win.
Yeah. 100%.
And like
It is the
that's why
quietest stuff in
these-
local tournaments.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off, Jacob.
Yeah.
It's
No,
the
sure.
quietest stuff in local tournaments in a while,
Yeah.
like across the board.
100%.
Yeah, these I don't mind having these formats occasionally, but that's what they need to be occasionally, and it's going to go on for too long.
Yeah, and I think you actually just raised an incredible point that I actually didn't think about, is that in general terms of general health of the game, yeah, like this is genuinely the first format in a while where I've seen both tier players and non-tier players sometimes just be like, you know what, have it, bro. I don't want to play, because they're just tired, and it's like they're just tired of facing the mirror. And the funny thing is, it's like we've had objectively worse decks be the best deck, and have not had this issue. But I think it's literally just a case of the sheer number of people playing tier, because our locals, I would say, is quite a competitive one.
Oh,
And
hugely.
Yeah, and so it's like, if you want to compete in our locals, you have to play the best deck a lot of the time. And so, for example, I think yesterday we had 6 people playing yesterday. 4 of them were on tier. Last week at Dan's, there was, I don't know, maybe like 17, 18 people. No, it was a full house last week. Sorry, so it was like 24 last week. The top 5 people, I think the top 6 people were all playing tier.
Yeah, top 6. Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, it's like I haven't played tier, or or get used to not topping basically for the next few months, which is quite frustrating. I think I think that's just a really good point in terms of
You say this. I don't think it's a point I necessarily disagree with. But I do think it's a point where you either have to play the best deck or play a rogue deck that is specifically teched out to the nines to beat these decks. Because on Monday at our other locals, Jake from Sanctum Squad came. He came second with Pure Crystal Beast, which was just hold tight Jake every single time.
That's a good matchup. That is.
Was it?
Well, this is the thing. You can play the Bestials, D Shifter, Skill Drain, what have you. So I think there are other decks that can be played, but it's essentially like you have to just build to just aim for this one deck and just shotgun it. And even then, if you just lose the dice roll or they open Cavness, you just GG's, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, jumping with one last thing around this, I completely agree with what you're saying there, Dan. The other thing, I guess, which sort of makes people sort of sick of it is that obviously the Ishizu cards are new, but Tier's not. Tier's been out for like
6 months,
something like that. Yeah, and in its various forms, it's always been very good. We haven't had that sort of lag like the OCG had with like Tier 0 Sprite. Like we Tier was always as represented as Sprite from the get-go. Yeah. And so in its various forms, like the Pure deck, the Danger deck, the Lunalight deck, and the Bestial thing in that period when Darkwing Blast had come out, like we've seen it in so many different ways already that people are like seeing that Kit Kalos is just people standard. It's really dragged on for them.
Yeah, it really has. But I think enough talk about the ban list. I think we're going to get into something a little bit more interesting, which is going to be the drama of the week, which is a new section that we're trying out. So, Fabs, do you want to bring us in?
Yes, sure. So, now I was desperately doing some research before this, trying to find like a kind of entire breakdown of the situation. I couldn't find one, but what I'm going to do is kind of lay out what I am aware of right now, and then we can kind of go on to our opinions. So, essentially, Hasbro released a set of proxies for MTG. Now, this set of proxies, it's 4 cards for about $1,000. That seems to be the most common thing that's stated. I saw something saying that 1 card is 1,000. I don't know if that's really the case, but it's 4 cards for $1,000. And these proxies are also not tournament legal. Now, I don't know if this was clear before they were released or not. I really am not sure. I don't know if any of you guys know. But
it was,
they were, so it was clear before it released. Okay, so yeah, a lot of people having said that are not okay, and there was specifically one YouTuber, I can't remember his name, but he essentially released a video saying that he didn't like their communication with both their creators and with the community, and there's just kind of been a lot of hate on that. In addition to this, obviously, specifically the Reddit community is really, really upset because just in general, I'm sure you guys are aware, getting into MTG in the first place is very expensive, to the extent that proxies sometimes are more expensive than the original cards in that game. Which, I mean,
what?
Yeah, it's an interesting side effect of when you think about it. We think of proxies in Yu-Gi-Oh almost as like, I don't have this card, so let me proxy it. But I would say that the mentality in MTG is a little bit different sometimes, where sometimes it's, I don't have this card, let me proxy it. Other times it's, I don't have this card, here's almost like another artwork for this card, almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially when you think about it, it's like, is it even, like, in on some levels as well, is it even really a proxy if it's being made by like an official vendor as well, or manufacturer as well?
Yeah, it's a bit weird from Magic.
Yeah, so I'm going to lay us off with, I would say, 2 questions. And the first question is, what is our opinion in general when it comes to proxies? What do we think, especially when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh stance on proxies? If anyone doesn't know, you are not allowed to proxy cards in official Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments. And the second question is, what do we think about how Konami treats the player base, especially compared to a company like Hasbro? So, floor's open for anyone to answer.
No, Nate, go on.
Well, first things first. Yu-Gi-Oh! And like Konami, I don't think would ever do a product like this. Mm-hmm. Mainly because of the fact of they like. Of course, the money stance would be good for business. Of course.
Yeah.
but it would be the sense of it's a really awkward one because it would mean that all the cards from previous years that had basically held their value as high expensive collector's items would then suddenly, well, not even suddenly, they would still decrease with, I don't know, a high price proxy running around somewhere. And it's an odd one. I'll let Dan go into it more because
Well, it's like, we were talking about this the other day. It's like you were saying about the DDS Blue Eyes thing. We were using that as an argument. So for those who don't know, DDS Blue Eyes is a Blue Eyes White Dragon promo that came out with one of the original Game Boy Color games, and it's worth a lot of money. But if Konami were to say like, oh, here's a product where you can pull this, it's pretty much the exact card. It's just not tournament play. I don't know what that would do to the secondary market. I think it's. I don't think it's a good move. I'm going to be completely real. I think all the feedback I've seen about it generally seems to be negative. I've not seen anyone say, "Yeah, this seems like this is a good product." I don't know if Konami would do something like this. I think Konami would do a cool collector's thing. 'Cause they've done stuff like this before. When you look at like the Egyptian gods that have been in like collections and things like that, and different artworks of stuff that might not necessarily be tournament play. But I think to dedicate a whole product to that just seems, I don't know. It's weird to me. That's what I think about it anyway. Sorry, Jacob.
Mirrored sort of what I was thinking there. Those god cards with the yellow, red, and blue colours of the whole card, they aren't legal, but as you say, they were part of something bigger. And of course, Konami does have collectors as one of its markets. It's not just people who actively play the game, but it's never a whole product. There's another thing I can think of that was these cards can't be used in a duel, although obviously they wouldn't be able to, was those oversized cards in Duel Overload. Which of course still have the can't be used in a duel text on them, even though they definitely would look a bit out of place in your deck. But they, I think they generally are a bit smarter, and it's not in every set, but they are a bit smarter in how their sets can serve multiple markets at once, like particularly when you see like DM stuff in with stuff from the anime and several different archetypes in a set, and so that increases the chance of lots of different people to buy the product, and so tailoring their products to really specifically to one of their markets is not something I feel like they do too often, and so that's why I don't think we'd see Konami do something exactly like this. I mean, one thing they did do that was to one specific market was Duel Devastator, which had that guaranteed set of staples, and
one of the greatest products of
it was
time.
Brilliant. But did it sell well? No.
Oh, really? It didn't.
Really?
I thought it did.
No,
they haven't done it again.
Well.
That's a good argument, actually. That's a good point. They haven't released anything really similar to that. So yeah, that is a good.
It's been a long time now. It's been what, 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. I guess you can give an argument as well, like in comparison to other card games who have done similar things. Like for example, Pokemon comes out every year with a trainer box which releases staples from the format over like the previous year's time. So any expensive cards that you couldn't get, trainers, items. Sometimes you can get sets that are released with Pokemon that were really, really expensive that are now just decreased in price. You could pretty much get everything at an affordable price, and they do sell relatively well. But then again, I think it's just what the game, like retail market is, because obviously with Pokemon, it's Pokemon. People are going to buy that product regardless. With Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic, it's a different story completely because they tailor off to very specific markets, I think. And obviously they don't have the backing of, well, they don't have similar backing in terms to other more successful TCGs. So, I don't know, it's a really weird stance.
It's a strange dichotomy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well.
Yeah.
There's not really much else I have to say, really, other than just do Dual Devastator 2 in it.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
you know what?
without
Yeah,
so
I'd be
many
happy with
copies
that.
of bloody Alloy of Justice Catasta in it.
Yeah, that was the weird one.
That's the
One for
weird
that,
thing about
but-
Dual Devastator, because Dual Devastator was actually an amazing set. But I will say there was Konami had this habit of putting crap in every set. It's like the set wasn't perfect, and like 100% I could make. And it's like I always get there's a financial incentive as well, but I think, for example, if Dual Devastator, because even when Dual Devastator came out, half of the XYZ monsters they released weren't even meta slightly. And it's like, for example, if they released Dual Devastator, but it had relevant links, for example, and then it had like, so it's like had the relevant links, and then it had relevant staples, and then also maybe they reprinted like just one of the meta staples at the time. I can understand not doing all of them, but maybe just one. That would have been a way better. It would have. Everyone would have bought it because, for example, one of the problems with Dual Devastator, I would say, is that for someone like me who already has all the staples, I buy it when a new card comes out. I just buy it straight away. There was zero incentive for me to buy it. And
See, you say that. I had a big majority of the cards before Dual Devastator came out, and I was like, oh well, I can make some money back, so I just sold all my other products and bought some Dude. I think I got like 3 for like 60 quid, which was a banging deal. But if you're not interested in doing that, then,
exactly. So it's like, yeah, sometimes that's the case, but like, for example, even at that time, for me, it just didn't seem worth the effort. Like, but if they released it and it was like, that's my point. If there was like at least something that was interesting to me, and one of the things about card games is like you always really do have to cater to people who are already invested in your game because you already know their customer, you already know they're going to spend money.
for
So
sure.
to me, it's always risky to not cater to those people. But yeah, like I still do think it was a good product. I am very happy with it.
Yeah, no.
Fingers crossed they do it again. Also, Konami, bring back Maximum Gold. Everyone on this podcast agrees that gold is the best rarity. So yeah, just bring back
Not a
Maximum
chance.
Gold. Yeah.
Funny place to in common.
Not a chance.
Right, guys, we are going to do another new section that I brought in, and I think it's going to be nice called. So, how many of you guys are familiar with the subreddit, Am I the Asshole?
Oh yeah, I love
God.
watching videos.
So, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, this subreddit is called Am I the Asshole? And essentially, it's people will say a situation that happened, or that might happen in the future, and then everyone votes on whether they think that person is an asshole or not an asshole, or if everyone in the situation is just a dickhead. So, I have two. I'm going to read the first one, and I was reading it this week because I'm on the subreddit all the time. I don't usually talk in it because Reddit is
It's
full
a
of...
good one to just lurk in, isn't it?
Yeah, Reddit is just funny.
The problem
Just
with
to
Reddit,
watch.
I find, before I quickly go into it, is that the people on Reddit, if I was someone who wanted to work out if I was an asshole, I wouldn't ask people on Reddit because, I mean, their social skills are not the best.
It's just crap because
Yeah.
it's like people who overshare.
In the blind, isn't it?
Yeah, literally. Like, but in any case, yeah. So, I'm going to quickly read it out. So this one is titled, "Am I the asshole for eating my husband's entire birthday cake by myself?"
Yes.
So,
Yeah,
so here goes.
You know he's gonna come back and just be.
So let me
Give us
read
the
the
lore
situation.
update.
Yeah.
Perhaps give us the lore update.
I'll preface
Fill us
this,
in on the manga.
So I'm going to read it now. I'll preface this by saying that my husband's family and I don't get along at all. We rarely ever are on good terms, and for my mental health, I decided to put distance between us, especially after I was blamed for my most recent miscarriage that happened 3 months ago. My husband can still see and visit them whenever he wants. For me, I don't attend any of their events, not even Thanksgiving or Christmas. My husband's 30th birthday was 2 days ago. I planned to celebrate with him. I bought a cake and a gift, but he said that his family invited him to celebrate his birthday and he really, really wanted to go because the birthday parties his family throw are like no others. We had an argument over this, but he told me to wait for him to finish celebrating there with his family, then we could celebrate together at home and eat cake. After he left, I felt terrible. I called him, but his phone was off. I was so mad that I took the cake and brought it to the living room and started eating from it. I ate the whole thing, not saving him a single piece. I guess I was so angry and it made me hungry. He came home and saw what I did and blew up, saying I did this to spite and punish him for not ditching his family on his birthday like I wanted him to. I reminded him I paid for the cake, but he called me petty and nuts. He ranted and then said he didn't get to eat cake at his parents' house because lots of kids were there, and so what I did was 10 times worse. He's been upset with me ever since. Am I the asshole?
Oh, see, this is interesting. It's not as cut and dry as it would seem.
Yeah. I saw that title and I was already interested. I was like, oh my gosh, okay.
You added some flavor.
Yeah.
I mean,
Hey.
So what do you think,
but
guys?
like, oh god, that's a really difficult situation because, like, knowing, because definitely having a tension between both families is a really big
Inconvenient.
thing. Yeah.
Mm.
But you don't know. It's like, for example, when you go out and people are asking, "Oh, are you going to have food while you're out?" I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll let you know. And then you come back and you're just like, "So where's my food?"
So I'll give what I thought about this. Now, whenever I read what anyone says, I mean, I don't know if you guys have heard the phrase. There's three sides to every argument. There's your side, my side, and the truth.
Yeah, but yeah, I love that phrase.
I always assume that everyone is an unreliable narrator. I don't know many people that are reliable narrators. So I take what she says with a pinch of salt. For me, there's three key things. I think she's an asshole. I think her husband's an asshole as well. But I think in this situation, she's mainly an asshole. Firstly, yes, what her family did is probably wrong. What his family did is probably wrong. We don't know the details of the miscarriage. But she said he can hang around with them after this. So that tells me that she's already said it's okay for you to still hang around with them. Or if she had been like just cut them off after this miscarriage situation, I would have more sympathy. But she hasn't said that, which means to an extent she has to be okay. It's like for example with me, I spend my birthdays with my wife now, but early in our relationship it was hard because my family usually does throw parties and stuff, and it's like I want to be down there for my birthday sometimes. Secondly, I don't know about you guys, but have you guys ever eaten a whole birthday cake by yourself?
No.
In one sitting?
Not in one sitting, I don't think.
Not
I've
in
eaten
one
a
sitting.
You have a
decent
bigger
chunk.
stomach
Not
than
in one
me.
sitting.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and I feel like to eat a whole birthday cake, even if I'm hungry, that's difficult. I would have to be so incredible. Like, I could only imagine doing that if I'm so incredibly upset you. I really want to hurt your feelings. That I'm going to press and eat that whole birthday cake.
There's got to be some different emotional levels to eating that cake.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
that already confused me because I was thinking you were that mad that you ate the whole birthday cake by yourself? Like, really? And then the last thing, which is kind of on this as well, is that she said, I reminded him I paid for the cake. And to me, it just gave very not nice vibes because, again, it was a similar thing where it's like, if I buy you a present, the first thing I'm going to say, even though is not, oh, I paid for it, though. Like, it's like, but it's your present, though. So, for me, I think she's an unreliable narrator, and I think she's an asshole, personally. That's my perspective on this lady.
I think,
Yeah.
I don't think necessarily she's an arsehole, but I think that relationship has some problems that need to be talked about. Like they need to sit each other down because you can't be going around slagging people off on their back and eating cakes in private because that's just a whole madness.
Yeah.
You need to just. I always say this, and I've always said this. Communication is key. So you two need to sit down, have a conversation, figure out where you're at, and then go Nando's or something.
Nando's.
Buy him another cake
I-
and then eat it.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if she's necessarily an asshole, but I think that both. I don't think either of them are particularly.
By the way,
yeah.
when I'm saying asshole, I'm using it in terms of the vernacular of the subreddit. My point being is that I do
So
think she's an asshole.
yeah.
Yeah, I
She's,
do.
I'm the bad guy essentially.
Yeah. But
So
sorry,
I don't
Sam
think
was-
that she's necessarily the bad guy, but I don't think there's any good guys in this story. It's just, it's like, do you know what I mean? It's just peak.
Yeah. I agree with you. Like, in the sense of who's the arsehole here, both of them are in the wrong. Well, it's miscommunication on both sides because really it should have been a case of, right, if you feel this way, let's have a talk and we'll settle it through and we'll just go through it properly. Because it's miscommunication on the husband's side because of the fact that he doesn't want to listen to his wife's feelings and is basically kind of neglecting her to kind of go and chill with his family, which I understand. But at the same time, he should have been more open. And then the wife is, well,
Obviously,
I don't want to lightly overreacting. I'm not saying that, but she is basically taking matters into her own hands and causing more of a fuss when really she should have been more vocal about it.
I'm not sure if that is I don't think it's an overreaction to be upset when you've made a plan for your partner and they go and
I don't
do
think
something
that is,
else.
but I think eating a whole cake is. Just
Yeah,
eating the whole
that's
cake,
more
like,
the overreaction.
If it's one of them tiny Tesco cakes, maybe, but I don't think it is. The way the way she really talked about it's like it's an entire birthday cake. To me, says that it's a birthday cake. It's like,
Yeah, don't tell me you're going to sit down there and eat a whole double chocolate birthday cake to yourself when you can only get through around about 3 slices. Like, come
I don't know,
on.
Jacob, what do you think? What do you think about this situation?
The first thing I said is I think I approach it very similar to Dan. Like when you finished telling the story, the thought in my head that was there was just they need therapy. And
There's no winners here.
no,
Yeah, there are no.
like obviously again as you said, Simeon, there is the question of the reliability of the narration, but if it's anything as described, there I think there's something that's serious sort of arseholery from the husband.
Yeah.
And the wife is at the very least taking petty to the extreme. But the way that sort of described about him his interaction with her on his return is, to me, sort of seems very unhealthy, and it does belie deeper problems that I think they would need to work out.
Yeah.
Or consider, well, what are we doing here?
Yeah, 100%. And it's just, I don't know. It's just confusing to me as well because I feel like I don't know. I will say actually from the husband's perspective, I don't know the entire miscarriage story, but the thing is she said she's okay with him still hanging around with them, but she's clearly not. I feel like at a certain point you know how your wife is. I'm not saying it in a sexist way. I don't think this is actually sexist to say, but I think in general often girls will say they're okay when they're not. And a lot of the times it's because they're holding back their emotions for your sake because they don't want to seem selfish. And so it's like, as a guy, like your girl's upset, like what the heck, bro? Like have that a bit of emotional intelligence, that EQ to just be like, okay, she's saying she's okay, she's saying you can hang around with them, but she's clearly not. So like,
I don't think necessarily girls. I think everyone does that to a degree.
I think everyone does that.
But I do get what you mean. Yeah. It's just a very in the words of Elton John, it's a sad situation, and it just seems to be getting more and more absurd.
I guess because there's like this stereotype that we can still do a lot better to move around men, particularly like failing to sort of articulate themselves emotionally particularly well, and if they're not comfortable, again sort of stereotyping, but if they're not comfortable having a conversation like that, then I guess it's harder for a partner in those circumstances to then introduce how they're feeling emotionally into a conversation if they don't feel that their partner is able to have the conversation from their side. And so
for sure.
We just need to build everyone up in that way.
Yeah. It's okay to talk in it.
Yeah,
it certainly is.
I also think as well, it's like when perhaps you were telling, guys do the same thing as well, where they'll say, "Oh, I'm fine, I'm all right." Like you don't really want to talk about the situation because at that point in time, it's the same thing. Like some guys are just really good at masking emotions and just don't feel like talking about them is the best course of action. Like,
yeah, to be honest, I'll be even saying, like, actually, that's one thing I do sometimes. Or sometimes I'm just like, I don't want to talk about it. And it's like, or sometimes I'll say I'm not upset. Having said that, when I do it, I genuinely don't want to talk about it. I know that talking about it will just piss me off further. So just leave me alone. Leave me alone. I'll get over it.
This conversation's actually brought me onto an interesting point that I saw on Twitter from CapG.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think you might have seen this, Jacob. He tweeted saying that one of his friends texted him asking if he was okay, and he messaged back saying, "Oh, come on, you don't know me like that. Like, we don't have that relationship." Like, and then he was like, then I felt a bit guilty about it. Essentially, he was asking, "Am I the asshole?" And what do you think about that? I think that's mad weird energy. Like, no disrespect to CapG in it. But.
I also think that's mad weird energy. Like, I'm not even joking. If your mate asks you if you're okay, just say, "Yeah, I'm fine."
Yeah, just like, yeah. I think if one of my friends texts me saying, "Come on, you don't know me like that," I'd be like, "Fuck you, innit?"
Yeah, I would say that if I felt so uncomfortable to tell you, if you're checking up on me, I'm not gonna have a hostile response. If I don't feel comfortable with you, I just won't tell you. I'll just be like, yeah, I'm cool, and then I'll keep it pushing.
It doesn't take a hostile response. It takes 5 seconds to say, yeah, I'm alright. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't. You don't need that kind of hostile response. And at the same time,
for me to say
you
you don't know me like that, I would have to dislike you. Then I would say that.
yeah,
Yeah.
you only respond like that when it's someone that you
Actively don't want to talk to.
Yeah.
or it's someone that again, isn't that close. But at the same time, it's just weird.
Which is interesting, to be honest, because if they have your number as well, I don't know about you guys, but I don't just give my number to anyone. So if someone has my phone number, then we at least talk. Yeah, which is I don't know.
Unless it's someone random like me this morning.
I
just got called randomly, like to wake me up this morning from a random number. I was like, "What is going on?"
You're definitely on the scam list, Nathan. You need to hit them with the block and delete.
Yeah.
I would agree largely that there is one guy with my number who I wouldn't expect this conversation from, and it's a guy who lives in Coes Hill who like mends brass instruments, and I once had my trumpet. I was like a musician, and my trumpet was broken, and so I had to go out to him and get it sorted. But like, I wouldn't expect an emotional conversation from him. But otherwise, I agree.
Yeah.
What do you think about the take, Jacob? Because obviously you're quite active on Twitter with the Grandmark account, so you're pretty in tune with a lot of this stuff, I imagine.
I think there was a very nice take expressed about this by Eva Leese, who's a content creator who lives out in the States, and I think that she generally hits the emotional nub of things very well, and just used this as another opportunity to sort of talk about what we've already reflected on already, and I completely agreed with around it's good to be open and talking about feelings more with each other, and repressing them is going to be to our detriment, and also will stop us from being able to have conversations effectively with people, and then it breaks down our relationships with each other, and I very much sort of feel that towards what Cap said. Like, it's just not, it just doesn't feel like a constructive way about going about something, even if you don't want to talk about it. Like, just yeah, no, I'm all right, thanks for checking in, but it's just going to put someone off from checking in on you later when you might not actually be okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I just wanted to kind of bring that up. I thought it was an interesting point.
I think that's definitely, and you know what?
What?
Okay, look, I'm not trying to start. Look.
Say what you say, man.
I think as black guys, this is a black guy thing. That in the black community, there's this very black people. For me personally, me and my parents are having this discussion. A lot of the times, we have this problem where we're not good at firstly relying on people, and we have this whole stay in your own lane mentality that really needs to go. I feel like we talked about another episode that men's mental health is really important. And I feel like it's really bad amongst black men because of stuff like this. This isn't me slating Triple G, but I will say as well. And I really feel like if you are lucky enough to have friends that reach out to you like that, you should be happy about that, because not everyone has that. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I can say that there's been a lot of most of the people that I can emotionally lean on that aren't women are not black. That is what I would say. I'm not saying now. Don't come and say that I hate black people or anything. No, that's not my point. But I'm just saying that in the black community, as a black guy, I'm saying as well, as guys, we need to emotionally lean on each other more, because I mean, it's important. And it's like, if you have friends that do that for you, don't throw that away, because it's not a common thing. But I
think that's a really good point you made there, Fabs. Actually, like, and I think it's important that we do bring up things like this that might be necessarily a little bit more difficult to talk about, especially when you're talking about, you know, your own community. Like, a similar kind of thing would be me like saying on the different end and on a different perspective, like from looking at like the trans community on like Twitter and people that I know, like it's completely the opposite side. These are people who like
Yeah.
will constantly be checking up on you, and I think that's maybe a little bit because obviously there's a lot more of mental health aspect of that. But it's essentially the same thing, and I think it is. I've always advocated for this. Nathan, Jacob, you'll both vouch for me here. It's so important to check up on your friends, and it's so important to check up on people, and it's actually more important to remember that everyone has their own shit to deal with. Like, it costs nothing to be kind. I don't think
it really doesn't. It really doesn't.
And like, this is something that I really want to speak about because it's something I've had to deal with constantly, and it's one of these things where when you grow up, you're told, well, you're not really told. It's the stigma that keep it all in. Don't open up. Go gym. Go do whatever. Take your mind off it, because this day and age, people don't want you to open up about your feelings. Like, they'll say they'll be open about it, but really, it's not the case. And I've had to lean on so many people now, who, well, not had to lean on, but like, I felt worried, like really scared, as when you're growing up, especially as a guy in this community, or in this day and age, you genuinely feel like you're on your own half the time. But there are still people and friends who can reach out to you and ask if you're okay. And if you do have those people, as you were saying, Fabs, don't throw them away. Literally, those are going to be the most important people in your life going forward, because it's so hard to find people who are genuine.
Yeah, life is hard, man. Life is bare hard.
And at the end of the day, it only takes a small amount of energy to be kind. We're all going through shit. We're all going through the same similar trials and tribulations, and you don't know what anyone is going through on the other end of a phone, on the other end of a call or a message, or seeing them in person. You can't always tell what's going on. So to be kind, to be caring, all these qualities, you just gotta,
you gotta appreciate them.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I think this is,
appreciate and reach out.
Yeah, this is one of the reasons that I was very happy to get Jacob on the podcast, because Jacob's always been someone who's been a real champion for this, and he's always someone who's been nothing but really kind and really courteous to every single person he's met. I've never ever seen Jacob act out of malice or out of rudeness at all. And Jacob's someone who always makes the
games of Yu-Gi-Oh.
Well, even in real life, like you've always made the effort to check up on me as well, especially like when I was very ill a couple of years ago. Like, you were consciously checking up with me every day, and you didn't have to do that, and it really gave me a good assessment of what kind of person you are. Not that I didn't already know anyway, but it kind of just reaffirmed that in me, and we've had a lot of conversations, and yeah, I just think it's really good to just, especially in the Yu-Gi-Oh community, because there's a lot of toxicity. I think it's really important to set an example, because you lead by example. Do you know what I mean? Like, someone can see how you act, especially a newer player. They can come in and see how you act versus someone who's just like, whatever in it, like, just doesn't really care. They're just there to get a double, whatever. But if you make the effort to have a conversation with your opponent, let them know that they're in a good environment. Because for some people, I've said this before and say it again, for some people this game is everything to them, innit? Like, yeah. Sorry, Jacob. Did you? I've realised that I've talked quite a lot this podcast. Did you want to weigh in at all?
Well, firstly, it's very kind of very humbling for you to say that. It's certainly those kind of things are things I aspire to do, but also at times I do definitely fall short of. Even if I don't always let that show, I sometimes get still frustrated and angry in my head, and just work to not let that out. But and with that, I guess it's important to, whilst it's valuable to be someone who is visible like that, don't ever, I guess, put me on a pedestal, because I am still human. But,
everyone's human.
But thank you, though. It's very kind to say. And what you've just said there is the most fundamental thing. Everyone's human, and that's the thing to really recognise with these, because what we have a community here. We have people who are coming together to play what is fundamentally a social game, because you have to interact with an opponent, or in theory, unless you're playing a big no negate board. But you what this is, it's a gathering of people, and the thing that makes this a vibrant community, the thing that makes the community continue to carry on, is fundamentally people wanting to be there. And most of the time, people won't want to be there if it's not a space that they feel welcome in or a space that they enjoy. And I mean, a lot of the work I do, both within my professional career and in other facets of my life outside of work, is around community building. And it's that there's something incredibly powerful about like impacting other people and improving their experiences of things. And that's, I think, something that we can all bring, is like not just going in with the mindset of I'm just here for myself, as much as obviously we are competing and we have to be like that when we're playing. But when we're in the space in general, like this is a thing that isn't just about me, this is about everyone, and let's all pull in the same direction.
Yeah, 100%. Very well said, and I very much like that. I think on that note, we're going to do our Would You Rather, and then we're going to sign off, because we are hitting the hour mark. We're doing a very, very good job, guys, by the way, of hitting them. So, guys, the last thing is going to be, look, unfortunately, guys, we're on a show of a degenerate, so the Would You Rather always ends up being quite wild.
We'll end it on a lighter note, innit? We've had quite a serious conversation, so we'll end it on a lighter note and sign out.
So, would you rather have a 3-inch dick that is always completely erect, or an 8-inch dick that is always unsoft?
Can you not make this realistic?
I'm gonna be real. Sometimes I'd just rather have a vagina. I think I'd probably just go with the soft, because it must just be so inconvenient to just have an erection all the time.
Okay, so you're going with the 8-inch softy, so it's always soft.
Man.
It never gets erect.
You still get the job done.
There's a lot of things in this world. You know, there's a lot of different paraphernalia you can use. There's a lot of different instruments. Yeah, man. Like I'd rather be comfortable, like in every aspect of my day-to-day life, and walk around thinking, oh man, I can't wear these, jeans or whatever. That's my thoughts anyway.
Where do you even begin to look at this question? This is incredible, Simon.
You can't out yourself like it's.
This is well. I think purely from this practical perspective that Dan has already articulated, I have to agree.
Okay, so we've got 2 people with 8 inches. Lovely, loving this. Nate, what are you on, bro? What's your objective?
I'm gonna go with the soft. I think it's a pain in the ass to walk around and not be able to, for everyone to see your prize jewels.
You have to look at the real life aspects of it, I think.
You know what?
It would be so painful. I'm just saying. Imagine wearing tight jeans.
Maybe then I'm just not good at looking at what would be realistic. Because I can't lie. For me, I was like, I'll definitely go for that permanently erect 3-incher. Yeah, I can handle that. I feel like, and you know what? It's tiny anyway. No one will really think. I'll just be like, I've just got something in my pocket, and yeah, they'll believe me.
You could just see hammer trousers, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean it's only 3 inches. I mean they're not gonna notice. Yeah, I don't know.
It's not about the size. It's about the size of the rock you're throwing at.
What?
I don't really understand that either.
Alright, guys, that was the Yu-Gi-Oh show. Another awesome episode. Thank you all. We'll definitely all be back soon to give you guys more amazing questions and more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh discussion. Also, thank you very, very much to Jacob for coming on the podcast. It was lovely having you. And Sanctum Squad, Dan and Nate, always doing the greatest job. Any last words from you guys?
I would like to thank Grandma YUGIOH for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
Make sure that you reach out to your pals, subscribe to everyone involved, and the spring in support's really good. I wanted to talk about that, but we didn't, so we'll do that next week.
Next week, we'll come on to
man. Just be kind to each other, look after each other, subscribe to everyone involved with the podcast, and have a good day.
Lunalight best deck.
No, you're all wrong. Flying Fist best deck.
I think they can play Tanky in it.
We can play 3 Tenki again.
Yeah,
Right,
Tenki
Christmas.
Turbo, Tenki Turbo.
All right, awesome. Thanks, guys. Peace.